Well, hello there. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. My name is Jamie J. I'm the shareholder here at Bottleneck Distant Assistance, where we help stop the bottleneck in your business. I'm really excited today to be talking with Erin. You'll find out in just a second what kind of cool conversations we're going to have around to make more out of your team experience. You know me. I love teams. I love culture. I love building a positive company culture and team. So this is going to be incredible. We're going to have a lot of fun with this today. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with you in about 38 seconds. We'll see you. Hello, my name is Jamie J. I'm the CEO, founder, shareholder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, where we help stop the bottleneck in your business. But that's not the bottleneck that we're going to help you stop in the business today. We're not even talking about Bottleneck Distant Assistance today. We are live with Bottleneck right now. My name is Jamie, as I said, and we're going to be talking with Erin Jewell. 5 key considerations to make more out of your team experience. She's the executive mindset and growth coach of Erin Jewell Consulting. And why, I love asking this, is can Erin help stop the bottleneck in your business? Let me tell you. Erin is an executive mindset and growth coach, an international professional speaker, facilitator, and professor of leadership and mindset at Villanova University. Erin has over 20 years of experience as a startup founder, E=MC², No Limits LLC, healthcare sector leader, Pfizer, Boston Scientific, and Medtronic, and commercial sales professional in the life sciences sector. Erin holds an MBA in systems thinking, pretty incredible, and a BS in marketing from Villanova University. She has professional certifications and affiliations with the International Coaching Federation, Qigong mindfulness-based stress reduction therapy, Transformational Vinyasa Flow, Reiki healing, meditation, and Pranayama, breathwork. Erin is bilingual in English and Spanish language and culture, and she's an ultra marathoner. That's amazing. An avid reader who resides with her husband, stepchildren, and puppy in Broomall, Pennsylvania. So without any further ado, please allow me to welcome Erin Jewell. How are you, Erin?
I'm doing fantastic, Jamie. Thank you for the very thoughtful introduction, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, I'm super excited and pumped about this. Number one, my wife is a multi-time triathlete, and she even represented the U.S. in the World Triathlete Championships in Hawaii several years back. So excited to talk with you, and I know how much dedication and work it takes to do there. So I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about you and maybe some of the background. Because when we go into the topic of what we're going to be doing today, 5 key considerations to make more out of your team experience, I'd love to dive into that. But first, I want to know a little bit more about you.
Well, first of all, Jamie, please high five your wife the next time you see her, maybe after this show or whenever that happens, because that is amazing. I've only ever done one sprint triathlon, and I was just talking with a friend about it the other day, how I need to change that pattern in my 40s. So hopefully that's something that will happen. So I admire and respect your wife without even having met her.
Well, thank you very much. And I give her a high five every day.
Good. Fantastic. We'll give her one for me as well.
I sure will.
So it's great to be here. Yeah, it's as you mentioned, I'm an executive mindset and growth coach. I'm grateful to do the work I do. I work with absolutely amazing humans. I'm very selfish. I've gotten into the work that I've gotten into because initially it really served me and my purpose when I was a formal leader in the life sciences sector. So a lot of my journey my professional journey has ultimately been inspired by personal goals and ambitions.
Are you still there?
Oh, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I saw, because I'm having a hard time. And if you're watching right now or in the replay, there is a little bit of a video delay here, but we still wanted the show to go on because there's going to be some pretty incredible things we're going to be talking about today. So if just turn on the video and just look away, or just enjoy it. So some of the things that I wanted to talk with you about today is I'm a huge fan of culture, big fan of culture, big fan of growing teams and having positive reinforcement in the workplace, and also making it so that we have a lot of confidence for everybody, so it empowers them to be able to, speak up or make suggestions or do things like that. And I'm wondering, what are some tips or some maybe some strategies that people that lead teams or are in a team environment might be able to do to kind of make things a little bit better for them?
Absolutely. And, you mentioned a very important word here, the word culture. And, I'm a back to the basics kind of a person. I'm a fundamentals type of a leader and type of human. I mean, even in my yoga and Qigong practices, you'll find me sticking to the basics. I like to say that, I'll spend the rest of my life perfecting downward dog, right? Like, it's just kind of because I think people like me in particular, the high achiever, the high performer, people like my clients who are high achievers and high performers, sometimes we forget the fundamentals and we kind of skip over some useful parts around the way. So the word culture, a definition of culture is that it can be changed. So first things first, as a leader, when you are approaching a project or just giving yourself permission to recalibrate and reflect and look at where you are with your team, if you are not satisfied with the culture of the team, just know that that can change. Cultures are established by a bunch of opinions that have kind of stayed in place for periods of time. Opinions, stories. I mean, listen, they have strong foundations and they're extremely valuable to us. But I like to highlight that if you meet a culture that feels like maybe unwelcoming or suboptimal in some way, just know that it can change and you can be a vital part of that change. Now, you asked the question, what are some tips and tricks? There are 5 other pretty fundamental things that I have yet to see fail in the world of team leadership. And they are trust, taking a strengths-based approach, and I'll break these down a little more in a second, communication, both verbal, nonverbal, and also material, a sense of community, and finally, holistic listening. So just kind of taking it from the top, trust gets skipped over all the time. And it is completely undervalued. And it's something that, and again, any terms that I speak in, although they sound general, obviously this is not going to be everyone's experience. However, I tend to find 3 categories when it comes to the things I talk about. You've got, it resonates with some people, it doesn't resonate with some people. And then there's this whole third category of like, almost like a denial. Like, I don't see it happening, but it's happening. Almost like Johari's window. We know what we don't know. We don't know what we know, things like that, So anyway, so we've got trust. A lot of time we think we've mastered this as leaders. We've come into a new team. We've brought new hires onto a team, and we think that we've taken steps that we haven't. So giving time to each employee to build rapport, to earn trust. What is one way a leader can earn trust? One way a leader can earn trust is by talking about mistakes they've made in the past. The number one fear of executives worldwide, based on certain studies, is incompetence. Thousands and thousands of executives included in one study, where over 50% reported that to be the case. Because leaders, in particular in the US culture, fear incompetence, it can be very difficult for a formal leader to talk about mistakes or past failures. However, the impact of that is they can actually lose trust or make it harder for themselves to earn the trust of the team by not showing up as more human. Moving on to strengths-based approach. Now, this is something that requires a certain level of self-observation and self-awareness that leaders don't always touch base with. And in order to take a strengths-based approach, I first, as a leader, need to have a good understanding of what my strengths are, not from the perspective of my organization, but from the perspective of what I value and what I enjoy. And once I'm doing that, I'm observing what I value and enjoy and I'm good at. It allows me to become more self-aware of what strengths and skills look like so that I can then observe that in my team members. And once I observe the strengths in my team members, that allows me to approach their work, to approach the team goals and objectives from a more strengths-based approach. And a slight side note here, there was recently an article, I believe it was in Forbes, that the title said, "Are the future of job titles obsolete?" So basically this entire article talked about the possibility of making job titles completely obsolete, where it becomes entirely critical for the leader to tap into and know the strengths of each team member. So literally in the future, this idea that people get hired because of what they're good at, they're not assigned a title, and then the tasks that they are called to perform are based entirely on the strengths that they have. So that's taking a strengths-based approach. I'll pause here. If you want me to continue to share the breakdown of the following tips and tricks, I will, or I can also stop and you can chime in.
Yeah, I'd love it. Oh my gosh, I'd love to get into communications, community, the three remaining tips, because there's a couple things that I want to talk about. You mentioned early on culture, the definition of it. I believe there's the definition of culture, in my opinion, is one word: behavior. And those are definitely some things, behaviors that can be changed. So totally agree with you there. I do have a question on that strengths-based approach. I'm a huge advocate of creating a role and responsibilities for our different team members so that they have some kind of structure to latch onto. However, every January, every single team member reviews their role and responsibilities and rewrites them according to what their specific strengths are and what they're more passionate about within their specific role. So they almost redefine the role that they're in. They even come up with their own titles if they want to. I don't really care. I do care about them being able to put themselves in a position that they really feel empowered to be in. And so we do this once. We meet with them once a quarter. We started doing one-on-ones. I meet with everybody and find out the four things I find out is: number one, how can I improve as a leader? How can I improve our conversations and our communications? Number two is, how are they? Just how are you doing? Number three is, here's what's going on for the next 3 months. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? So we get feedback from there. And then fourth is, when can they take some them time, right? And I found that this is really powerful. And it all leads up to the beginning of the year for that strength-based approach. I didn't know there was a word for that. There's a word for that. It's pretty dang cool. So thank you for sharing that. I wonder, as you're talking about the strength-based approach, at first I was like, wait a second, yeah, you're going to try and be strong, and then you look at other people, and I didn't get it, and then it all made sense to me. So thank you for explaining that. And I'm wondering now if we could jump back into the communication, unless you had anything to kind of come back on my comments.
Well, I appreciate what you said. I love the word behavior for culture, and I think it's fantastic that you're giving this opportunity for people to constantly recalibrate what they want to get into based on what they're enjoying and good at, because it really is that process of evolution. And if you want to really inspire innovation, creativity, and growth, that's the kind of things, that's really the kind of stuff you want to be doing. So I think that's great. And your point is valid. And this is a gap, I think, when it comes to just leadership development in general, is the focus tends to be off the leader and on the external. And that's a problem. I mean, it's the same thing as is the old statement or sort of quote, separate emotion from the problem. It really is counterproductive. So if we're not touching base with self, what we're good at, what we know, how we feel, we really can't effectively do that for other people. And it shows up in leadership. It's just that simple. I mean, you'll have, that employee that shares they feel disconnected from their leader. It usually is a direct result of a lack of self-reflection and self-observation and self-awareness. So it's very common. So just moving on to communication is next. And when we talk about leadership communication, we're talking about, some of us in the coaching space and in the teaching world, in the leadership teaching world, we talk about communication in 3 parts: verbal, nonverbal, and material. So as it relates to a team, a lot of times leaders focus primarily on the verbal, how I sound and look and show up and present in person. However, there's this whole world of nonverbal communication. In fact, there's one publication that discusses this and says that about 55% of the impact that takes place during a communication exchange is happening non-verbally. And about 7 or 8% of the impact is actually the words and tone of voice. So the majority of the impacts that we're having in any given interaction is actually a result of the nonverbal. So nonverbal communication can include things like not responding to the email or responding to the email, not calling the person back or calling the person back. I also recently learned that when it comes to American Sign Language, which might be categorized by some as nonverbal because it's facial expressions and gestures, that is in fact considered verbal communication. So I like to mention that too. And perhaps for some that's trivial. For me, that was a recent and new learning, which I was very grateful to become more knowledgeable on. So, and then you have the material communication. So material communication is how am I preparing for the interaction? So for example, what did I do today to prepare for this conversation, for this podcast? What did you do? What is the leader doing to prepare for a meeting? Is there an agenda? Are there seats to be set up prior to the meeting if people are meeting in person? Are there invitations to be sent out? So material communication is also very important. When I'm in the meeting as a leader, am I talking the whole time, or am I making time for other team members to talk? Am I making sure that the less dominant personalities, the minority personalities, are being heard? There's a great article in Harvard Business Review called The Science of Team Chemistry that was published, I believe it was published in 2017. And it talks about personality differences in meetings and how when we're in meetings, if we tend to hear the same personality talk meeting after meeting, there's a really good chance that it's going to hinder any growth or innovation for that group. So leaders actually paying attention to who are the people that aren't speaking as much and what is it that they have to say, and making sure that everyone feels comfortable contributing during the meeting. So that's material communication. And then after that, we have sense of community. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking Elon Musk. I don't know if you read that article. It came out, I don't know, a year ago, but he says if someone doesn't speak up in his meetings, he's like, what are you doing here? You can go. You don't need to be here. If you're not going to contribute, why are you here? I mean, he wasn't saying it mean, but I mean, I thought that was interesting how you brought that up.
Well, and I didn't read that article, but and obviously Elon Musk is an extremely accomplished human, but I would politely and respectfully respond to that comment with, well, what else can you be doing to make that person feel safe to speak? And, because here's the thing, not everybody operates the same way. And, I think it's now more than ever is time for us to really own what that means in a group setting. So quick sidebar, I was recently talking with a friend who teaches about storytelling. And I said, well, give me some tips. And he said, okay. He said, well, there are certain individuals and studies show that women are often interrupted. And as a sort of coping mechanism, women will often not pause between sentences. So they will go from one sentence to a next, because if they pause, they will be interrupted. So the problem with that is women aren't, as a result, able to process information as much. And so what he teaches, and it's not just women, but it's, like I said, the studies are showing, so what he teaches is that when somebody is talking, anyone who feels like they're interrupted frequently, when they go to pause, to actually raise their finger up in the air several inches, just kind of like pointing their index finger up toward the sky, just kind of like as a gesture of, I'm still communicating and I'm in the process of processing, and I would like to still have time to communicate, right? So I thought that was very interesting. So back to really, this is all kind of connected, right? The sense of community, acknowledging the differences in personalities, making sure, whether we're talking about preparing for a meeting or actually in the meeting, what are we doing to encourage a safe atmosphere and, in the workplace? And that really does involve everyone feeling heard. So that sense of community leads to retention. It leads to more creativity and growth and very high levels of productivity. Because here's the thing, when somebody feels part of a community, they feel a meaning, a sense of purpose, right? McKinsey did a study on this, and they call it the meaning quotient. So it's very much like EQ and IQ, MQ. The higher the MQ, or sense of meaning, that an employee feels at work, it exponentially increases their levels of productivity by at least 5 times over that which is achieved by an employee who's simply operating at higher levels of EQ and IQ. So there is data to suggest that somebody feeling a sense of meaning and purpose at work, which can absolutely come from feeling a sense of community, is going to substantially improve productivity. So the last one on the list here, certainly not the least important, is holistic listening. So as a coach, I have learned a little bit more about what listening is. So for those of you who maybe have heard of coaching, but it's not really very clear to you, coaching is different from mentoring and consulting and therapy, in that coaching is not about telling someone what to do. It's about inspiring, thought-provoking conversations to help the individual maximize potential. Coaching is a partnership. And so, here's the thing. I learned how to ask questions as a coach. And I also, literally, those of us who go through certain certification programs, what happens is we record transcripts and we have them typed out. And then as part of the testing process for new coaches, one of the things that is critiqued is how much of the highlighted transcript is the coach talking and how much of the highlighted transcript is the client talking. And the goal is to have as little of that highlighted transcript to be the coach talking as possible. And the goal is also to have as much of that highlighted transcript to be questions. So it's very interesting. And believe it or not, that was very difficult for me to learn at first. I am a trained sales professional, and it was always about telling a good story. So it was actually a pretty rocky transition for me into coaching. I'm not going to lie. But in that place, I learned about holistic listening. And I've kind of made it that word. I mean, it's not exactly what I was taught, but here's what it is. So there are 4 levels of listening based on this particular concept. And the first 2 levels involve more of this active listening. So in that case, it's really good for podcast interviews, things like that, where, I'm going to wait until you're done talking and I'm going to pull from what you said so that I can respond with something that's appropriate and relevant to the conversation, right? And that's a skill. That's level 1. That's really level 2. That's a skill. When you get to level 3 and 4, you are so present for the human when they are talking that you're not only listening to their words, you are also conscious of why they're saying what they're saying, the story behind what they're saying, the context around with which they're speaking. You're conscious of how they're moving. You're conscious of what their eyes are doing. You're conscious of what their lips are doing, with what their ears are doing, with what they're doing with their hair and their hands. And you're just so fully focused on the entire being that you have absolutely no agenda whatsoever other than to be present for them and their story during that time.
Love it.
So like, right? So like when, you know, like when was the last time your leader did that for you? Or like when was the last time, you know, you as a leader did that for one of your employees, right? And when was the last time somebody did that for you as a leader, right? You know, it's just it's one of these things where, again, it's a little bit back to the basics, but I think it's one of the basics that may have gotten skipped somewhere along the way as other things became a priority. So that's it. Those are the 5 key considerations.
I love. I have to comment on listening. I think listening is it is by far and away what I think encapsulate a positive company culture and good leadership, and everything that was said before that. As you said, there's no order of importance: trust, strength, communication, community, and of course, listening, holistic listening. As a matter of fact, every year we have a word of the year. And this word of the year is embraced by our entire organization because it gives us something to challenge us a little bit, and it keeps us in the back of our mind. Hey, this is the theme. This is what we're trying to accomplish. And a couple of years ago, it's focus, finding opportunities by creating uninterrupted strategy sessions, right? The next year, it was listen intentfully and soulfully to engage notably. And I just want to say thank you for touching on holistic listening and going into such detail, because I think that is the utter foundation of having an incredible team. And when you listen, I feel when you listen, it gives other people an opportunity to speak up. Like you said, every single week we have a weekly meeting. A different person leads that meeting every week. Give different people an opportunity to talk and different people an opportunity to listen. We also do training, so that person shares a little bit of the insight of what they do for that role. 3 weeks ago, we invited somebody in. They had sent out surveys. They got 34 replies back from our team. And she goes, I've never seen this from an organization. I said, what? She goes, 82% of your team looks forward to your meetings. And I was like, yeah, because that's like, who gets jacked up about meetings? But I think when I heard you talk about listening, I think it kind of gives me what it's all about.
Wow, that is fantastic to have a team excited about weekly meetings. I don't hear that too often either.
Yeah, we love it. Well, I want to say thank you. I promise you this would take 20 to 30 minutes. We're just approaching the halfway part on the hour. So I want to ask, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do?
Thanks, Jamie. And thanks for today. So the best place to go is erinjewellconsulting.com. That's ErinJewellConsulting, all one word. And you'll find resources, blogs, free guided meditations. You'll also, if you go to the bookings tab, feel free to make time with me. If you have any questions about anything I've shared today, or would like to share an example or a win or a learning, I'm always excited to hear what the experiences are from listeners as well. So yeah.
And one more thing, you have a book.
I do. I have a book called Redefining Success, A Leader's Guide. And I got to tell you, this book is raw and real and uncut. And the way it's set up, it presents a case, a challenge, and a solution. So there are 12 chapters. And these are, it's written in auto fiction. These are real life stories. And some of them are pretty direct and, definitely an opportunity for you to get a close look on what to do in some very challenging real world workplace scenarios. So it's not a very long read. I like to use it with clients as more of a guide. And yeah, you can find it on Amazon.
Congratulations. Oh my gosh. Big time congratulations. And Erin, thank you so much for joining Live with Bottleneck today and sharing your wisdom and insights. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap today?
Oh gosh, Jamie, I really appreciate the time today. I think what I'll say is this: I'm really in favor of eliminating this idea that there are good leaders and bad leaders. I like to talk about effective leadership. And here is why. I feel like we're all humans doing the best we can. And the more we can lift each other up and find ways to do a better job from a place of non-judgment, the quicker we're all going to see each other really just thriving as a humanity. So really just focusing more on effective leadership as opposed to being a good leader or even talking about a bad leader, and not being afraid to care front and give feed forward as is important and necessary.
Oh man. Thank you so much. That's really important. Effective leadership, as opposed to, that's something cool to think about, by the way. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks for having me today.
Do you have just a second so I can wrap up? And then
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Erin. Hold on one quick second and we'll reconnect here. Thank you. So I've been talking with Erin Jewell today. We talk about Erin Jewell Consulting. So here it is. The 5 elements, no important order, of a good, effective team building. And by the way, just so that you know, we've talked about the 5 key considerations to make more out of your team experience. And heck, why, if you're going to be meeting, why not make more out of your team experience? So number 1, trust. Number 2, strength. Number 3, communication. Number 4, community. And number 5, listening. In this case, specifically, holistic listening. Can't thank Erin enough for joining us today. Seriously, if you get a chance, go check out her website. It's erinjewellconsulting.com, ERINJEWELL consulting.com. And there you can go and learn more about what she's got going on, make an inquiry, share a win for the day if you want to do something like that. Have a great time. And heck, you might as well go read Erin's book at the same time, Redefining Success. It's a leader's guide. It's a little bit of a shorter book. Tons of good nuggets in there. Definitely go check that out. I want to say thank you again for joining us here at Live with Bottlenecks. We did experience a little bit of a technical difficulty. It's probably on my end. There was a lot of stuff happening in the back end, a lot of stuff with this live streaming. I tell you, we're thankful that you were here. A couple things I want to touch base on really quick is if you want to learn how you can break through the bottleneck in your business, you can go check out Bottleneck Television. And you can go find that by going to bottleneck.online/BTV for Bottleneck Television. It's actually YouTube, but we wanted to say Bottleneck Television anyway, so it makes it a little more fun and exciting. Coming out August 31st, my first book, Quit Repeating Yourself. No, this is not the cover. The cover's coming soon. We're going through the design of that right now, but I'm so excited to be publishing my first book. So its published date is August 31st, 2021. As the time of this recording is about a month away. And the books will be shipping the second week of September. We're really excited about that. We talk about culture, leadership, systems, processes, recruiting, and hiring so that you can grow a sustainable business the right way. And finally, I want to talk to you a little bit about who we previously had on as a guest of Live with Bottleneck. We had Matt Kubler. He's a policeman, and we talked about living a life of selfless service. He's a speaker, mentor, police officer, and he's also a podcast host. We just talked to him on Tuesday. Coming up soon to your earbuds, I'll be on vacation coming soon, but on Tuesday, August 10th, we're going to be talking about, are you ready for the future of work? Ask a Gen Zer, Hannah Grady Williams. So she's a founder of Overture Consulting. We're going to be talking to her Tuesday, August 10th, 2021, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. Really excited about the future of work. Boy, I've got a couple ideas there as well. In the meantime, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any comments or questions, you're watching this in a replay that you want to get a hold of Erin, please just leave it in the comments and I'll find a way to get whatever I need to get to Erin, make the introductions, do whatever we need to do to begin. And remember, create your own ripple. We'll see you soon.